Take your silver spoon, dig your grave. One less challenge, pick your path and I'll pray. Wake up in the morning, see your sunlight burning to go down. Lousy lovers pick their graves, but they never cry out loud. Cry out. You make me cry, make me break down, shout your illusions all now. Look now, lose your head, or pick up your pieces and go home.
What's up? What's up? And you are hanging with the big bad beast. Give me back my 90s music, coming at you with another episode. And that by far is one of the best covers or best versions of that song I've ever heard. One of the many songs covered from one of the many great bands from the 90s who made it their own, which made it 10 times better, if you ask me. It came from the sequel to The Crow, the City of Angels, which I remember seeing that in the movies, man. Had a pretty good soundtrack too. Iggy Pop was in there. It was not a bad movie. Definitely not as good as the original, but that is a kick-ass tune, man, from the great Hole, led by, of course, Courtney Love. And what I wanted to do with this episode was obviously dedicated to all the wonderful female singers we had from the 90s, man. Living in today's world, where with things being the way that they are, it's funny, and I think a lot of people can attest to this too and agree with me, is that, going back to the 90s, we didn't really look at things in a sense. Well, most of us, or myself, I can't speak for others, but I never really looked at others. I looked around and said, oh, that's a girl band, or oh, that's a girl song, or no, man, good music was good music, just like it always was in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s and so on and so forth back. And that being said, there wasn't so much of a spotlight on things in terms of, you know, sung by a lady, sung by a man. Like I said, good songs are good songs, good music is good music. And during the 90s, man, we had some of the absolute best female singers that there ever was. In fact, I always thought that it was a time in musical history that got overlooked. Of course, obviously, when you look back at the long history of music, what some of the great acts that come to mind are great lead singers. Obviously, you got the great Janis Joplin in the 60s, and Joan Baez, the great Gracie Slick, who, obviously for Jefferson Airplane. And then as you kind of move forward during the 70s and 80s, you had so many, Joan Jett, so many, man, that come to mind and that I cannot remember at this current moment, because I don't know, my brain is like, I got a electrical charge. This black coffee's is helping now. And then you fast forward to the 90s, man. Oh well, yeah, and you had a lot of great female acts, man. Even coming over from the 80s, there was a lot in the 90s. And again, I don't, great Taylor Dane, you had Paula Abdul, all these great, great, great performers. And then in the 90s, again, it's just like that time that's just like kind of capped off from 90 to 2000. Man, we had so many. It was crazy on an all on a just like on a level that you can't even remember. And again, things always kind of, I want to say, you always kind of look back on things, and you have, for the most part, you have a greater appreciation for things in retrospect, in hindsight, because as they say, hindsight is 2020. And in this case, big time, I think it's more like more bigger, more magnified than 2020. But when you look back at it in terms of what this subject matter is, it was the golden period, I think, or one of the many for ladies when it came to bands and singers, man. And the I'm not going to probably have. I'm probably going to miss so many of them. I know I'm going to miss so many of them, and I apologize for that. But time being what it is, and just for whatever reason, these ladies were innovators for the future and for all time. Okay. And that being said, at that time, you know, I think it was interesting because when you Google the word grunge, as I mentioned before, it's kind of a slang term, man. It was a narrative at the time, kind of put forth by those trying to coin times as they've done always through time. And when a lot of these ladies who were just like no holds barred, didn't give a shit about what a female lead singer is supposed to be or look like, this and that, they did something different, man. They really did something different, because a lot of the times you saw it was only like for dudes. Like, you had, the word grunge, whatever it means in terms of like, looks, it was kind of raggedy and ripped jeans and this and that, and then you think of some of these ladies we're going to mention today who were deep into that scene, who made it be known that no, ladies can do this shit too, and they did it just as good or even better, man. And they hold a special place in music history, along with all the other wonderful female performers we have. They're right there. And it's funny, man, some of my most famous, again, only speaking for myself, so some of my most favorite, I should say, singers of all time have been ladies, have been females. And the great Tina Turner, one of my favorites of all times. God, Courtney Love. So just so many, man, that hold a special place for me, and I think hold definitely a special place for all time, man. They're in there with a special group, of course. And I would have to check my history on this, so don't try and throw anything at me. But I'm wondering if the industry looked down upon ladies back in the day and all the way up. I'm sure, obviously, that did happen, of course, and I'm sure, obviously, it did happen to ladies of color, which was extremely unfortunate. As we've spoken about before, I mean, how at one time someone was told they couldn't do this because of the color of their skin or the spelling of their last name. Ridiculous. So I'm sure it unfortunately happened to ladies too. And these women during the 90s, like I said before, kind of just blew the doors off shit. I mean, one person that comes to mind right there is Courtney Love, man. If you weren't around for those times, Courtney Love was just a force to be reckoned with, man. She's one of the many we're going to get to today. And again, this is a very interesting and special group. A lot of them are still going today, thank God. Still large and in charge. We've seen a lot of them kind of veer off and go into different directions with artistry and whatnot, which is always a very interesting and wonderful thing to see. But I love the fact that they're still around, man. Because it keeps the younger generation, keeps them smart and on their toes if they're paying attention. That no, before the ones you're looking up to today, there were these ones, and then before them there were these ones. You got to know your history, man, and everything. Sports and the world, I think it's the most important subject there ever is, because math, science, and all that other shit fall into the subject of history. History is basically the study of time. And within that capsule are all these different subjects. And when you talk about music, it's the same thing. Know your history, man. Know your history well. Therefore, you can be objective and you can have an opinion that's really valuable, and learn to appreciate more things and accept more things that you may have not been open to. So let's just jump into this wonderful group of ladies here, and I've got a few of them. Again, I know I'm going to miss. Excuse me, I'm going to miss some, and I apologize for that. But obviously for time and whatnot, let's just stick to the group I have here. And of course, I'm always happy, welcome, and open to people adding them. I've seen it on the Instagram account. So many people cool enough to kind of add some others that I didn't have on that nice little collage there. And I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Always good to hear from people and their opinions with this. And jumping right into it, the first one I'm obviously going to do is Courtney Love. Okay. And obviously, I think she's like kind of one of the many leaders for this group. Um, because for all reasons. Okay. If you, like I said, were not familiar with back in the 90's, Hole and Courtney Love were all over the place. When they came about, they were just tearing shit apart, man. There was nothing like them. I unfortunately never had the pleasure of seeing them live in concert. My brother did. I don't know if it was at one of the Lollapaloozas or one of those concerts, but I remember him saying that like Hole took over, man. They were everywhere. She jumped into the crowd. She was fearless, man. Fearless. Holy shit. So obviously it felt only right to start with her. She's always been a very artistic person, man, involved in movies. Great actress, too. Phenomenal actress. I mean, going back to 200 Cigarettes and, obviously her standout film, The People versus Larry Flynn, she was phenomenal. I wish she would have done more. I really enjoyed her. I always thought she was super duper hot too. I gotta, I'm gonna throw that in there. I'm sorry, man. If you're a dude from the 90's, who lived through the 90's, I should say, I don't give a shit, man. You can't tell me she wasn't hot. She wasn't one of your the thoughts in mind when you thought of sexiness. When she had the dark hair, when she had the blonde hair, when she was in ripped clothing, when she was all duded up, she was smoking. All right. Obviously, everybody knows she was married to the great Kurt Cobain. Okay, which has always been, a very extremely and interesting aspect of her life. Imagine that talent, man. Her and him. I mean, that's amazing. That they were married and everything. Two wonderful musicians who went on to form two the greatest acts of the '90's and of all time, and have a lot of fame with them. Right? I mean, you couldn't get better than that. Um, you know. But yeah, man. Obviously, that's what a lot of people kind of remember about her. Obviously, first, supposedly she taught herself how to play guitar, which is always interesting. To me, that's like I kind of understand that in a sense. Like I guess sometimes the best way to learn something is to just kind of learn it on your own. Maybe you don't go to a teacher. Some people do that, man. They do that with a lot of different things, and you find that a lot of people have the most luck when they do that, whether it's carpentry or something else. You learn and you basically go from there. Sometimes that's the best way to do things, I think. Okay. And obviously it really worked for her. All right. According to what I'm reading, early on in her career, when she was in LA, she worked at various strip clubs, obviously saving money for the band and everything, rehearsing. Okay. Like many bands, they started off in the club area, which is always quite interesting. All right, and they grew from there. The good thing about that time too was the scene. That scene, man, must have been so interesting. I wish in another life I can go back, come back, like, and live through this scene during the mid '80's, late '80's, when all these bands were up and coming. In whatever, predominantly in LA at the time, or maybe go to Seattle and see that, and just go to these small clubs and see these bands rocking out, and hearing what would go on to be some of the biggest acts ever. Um, I really, really wish I could do that. Their first studio album was Pretty on the Inside. Great, great name for Great name for an album. Pretty on the Inside. I like that, man. I remember seeing that in the stores way before I knew anything a whole, which I always thought was very interesting. Um, I don't know. One of those things that catches your eye, especially being a young man, and ladies and this and that, and your hormones are all over the place. Yeah, that I remember that one. Um, the album received a positive reception from a lot of the critics, um, especially by the magazine Spin. And it's always funny to see where, like I said before, these groups' early work started from and how it did. You never can tell. You never can tell, without a doubt. When I talked about this on that other episode about albums being who knows this was going to be this one, this. Lo and behold, there she goes and marries Kurt Cobain in '92, of course, right? And then she was kind of everywhere in Vanity Fair, and they were all over the place, man. The especially after Nirvana's Nevermind. I remember that, man. That was interesting. That was really interesting. They were like, they became like that it couple, especially in the rock in the music industry, I should say. You know, um, that definitely was always interesting to see. Live Through This obviously was a huge album for them. Commercial and critical success, on all levels, man. Again, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing Doll Parts, asking for it, you name it. That album was kick ass. Go back and listen to that, man. There's so much energy in that album. It's extremely interesting. Um, I think it's one of those albums that stands out, especially in this category. When we talk about the ladies, one of the best that there was. Not a long album either, 38 minutes. Miss World. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing Violet. That was a phenomenal video. That video was on constantly. In fact, that goes in there with like one of the greatest songs of the '90s. That's on my like my when I'm gonna lift hardcore and everything. That's on it. That's a song. That's an ass kicker that just gets you going, man. Okay. Um, they enjoyed a lot of success with this album, and very understandable. I mean, let's face it. It was phenomenal. Kicked ass all over the place, man. All over the charts. Sold over 16 million albums and counting. They were touring everywhere, man. Okay, I mean, I remember, you know, um, them touring extensively on after this album came out, and it was really cool too because I think that like it was extremely positive for females and everything, especially in the grunge genre, I should say, because it gave them a sense of that they belonged here, of course, and that they could do this too. It wasn't just for dudes, you know. That's the wonderful part of it, man. That we've seen fast forward to today. So yeah, they had a lot of breakthrough with that, obviously, you know. And it's kind of cool too, like her and Kurt Cobain enjoying success on both of their bands' work. I mean, that must have been really interesting. I come home from work, how's everything? Oh, never mind. Live through that's really nice. Had to take a sip of that. And again, she was no joke. Stage diving, flashing crowds, getting into fights. Tough, man. Tough. Somehow I love to go back and watch her interviews. They are awesome. Go through interviews with her from early on to later on. So interesting. Obviously very smart. Okay. But always interesting, man. And then, of course, she crosses over into the acting world. Well, she had before. She was in Sid and Nancy. But she had a role in the film Basquiat, if I'm saying it right. I could be totally masquering it. That great artist, Jean-Michel Basquiat. And then, of course, Feeling Minnesota. Great name for a song. Always reminds me of Soundgarden's Outshined. Then the starring role as Althea in People vs. Larry Flint, man. I mean, that skyrocketed her as an actress. She was no joke. Great film. Go back and check that film out, man, if you can. Then they released, which I felt is one of the most underrated albums in celebrity skin. I love that album, man. That was such a badass album. Okay. So many great songs off there. Obviously, Celebrity Skin, Malibu, God, Northern Star, Boys on the Radio, Heaven Tonight. Underrated album, to say the least. Very underrated album. Okay. Numbers wise, it sold, of course, over 1 million in the US and up and on, but it's such a good album. Go back and listen to both of them. They were able to put out 2 kick-ass albums back to back, man. That's rare. That's some rare shit right there, man. Okay. I can't say enough about that one. So they were enjoying a really nice run there. And of course, Hole was touring with several different bands at the time. I see they toured with Marilyn Manson. Beautiful Monsters tour. That's a great name for a tour, right? That must have been a kick-ass show to see. See, again, that's what I'm saying. You go back and you see when they used to do this, man. It was so cool. When they used to have these great, these great shows and venues that were where they put so many wonderful people together. Then there was a bit of a hiatus there for a little bit. She had her own personal issues and stuff like that, which most people do. Okay. And their third album obviously was her solo album was America's Sweetheart. She veered out to do some solo work, obviously. Again, extremely talented musician. And then from there, you saw her on so many different outlets, whether it was Late Show, Howard Stern, where she was on quite a bit. Very interesting run they've had. All right. Band breaks up, which really sucks. It's a shame, man. They had a unique sound, unlike many others. And it was a shame to see them break up. They did come back and have that album, Nobody's Daughter, in 2010. Of course, that wasn't all the original members of Hole, I believe. All right. Then she also, too, I left out Man on the Moon. Very good movie, man, with Jim Carrey, where he played the great Andy Kaufman. She was really good in that, too, man. Extremely, extremely talented. I don't know if Hole will ever get back together. Obviously, they're not together anymore. 2012 was the last they were together, but I'd really love to see them come back around. There's in 2019 there was talk that they could get back together and all that shit, but that was canceled. I saw that her and another member of the band had planned a tour, but COVID had destroyed it. One of my favorites, man. She was no holds barred. She was no joke. Real talented person. I believe she wrote a couple books too. I mean, One of my favorites. Always looking good too. Courtney Love, man, and Whole. Yeah, they're definitely stand alone in that list without a doubt. Moving on our list here. The next person is obviously, again, in the 90s. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing her songs on the radio because there was so many of them. Holy shit. It was like one after another. Alanis Morrisette, another one who just kind of, who was just one of those main voices of the 90s, man. Her album, Jagged Little Pill, was obviously full of hits. First, came what was it there? You Ought to Know, right? Off that album, kind of, which always kind of, when you're younger, you kind of figure out who's she talking about, and you didn't really, I remember didn't really get all the lyrics, early on, but over time, I was like, oh shit, and of course, off that album came Hand in My Pocket, You Learn, Head Over Feet, Ironic, All I Really Want. I mean, full of hits, man. Full of hits. And again, if you were living during that time, you couldn't go anywhere. You could not go anywhere without hearing her stuff. That album, worldwide, 33 million sales. Can you friggin' imagine that? That's crazy. Her videos were all over. Is it that? I think it was that funky video, Ironic, right? With her in the back of the car there and all that shit. Great stuff, man. Just great stuff. I mean that's one of those standalone albums there. She had such a chunk of good content on that album that just kept being pumped out. It was really, really a great time, man. I can't say it enough. Just have all this stuff pumping out. We had it made big time. And again, she's one of the many too that crossed over a little bit into the acting field. You saw her in that Jay and Silent Bob movie or Kevin Smith movie, Dogma. She played God. Remember that? She also was played the same role in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, one of my favorite movies. She had she was in a couple of things. Just looking at this list, and now obviously they has her own documentary called Jagged. Great name. And I believe there was a stage play about her too, based off of her. Same thing. Appeared on a lot of TV. I see. Didn't know she was in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Holy shit! I got to go back and see that. She was in Sex and City, Nip and Tuck, Weeds. Obviously, all over the place, man. Holy shit! Again, extremely talented person, man. Headlined a lot of different tours too. Wow, look at this list. Headlining a tour in 1996 with Radiohead. Part of the Junkie tour with Garbage and Liz Phair. Wow. That's amazing, man. Had a great, phenomenal run. Still going. Only 47. She's young. And after the Jagged Little Pill which is it's actually her fourth album, Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie. Man, that's a lot of hard words to say altogether. One of my favorite songs came off that album called Thank You. Great song, man. Had a lot of luck with this one too. Selling over 8 million. It's always interesting with the second, I shouldn't say the second, but the next album that comes after such a mega hit album. It's always either really, really up or it's kind of down sometimes. It's kind of hard to top when you hit the best, man. Some can do it, don't get me wrong, but then of course she had, oh my God, 5 different albums. The latest one coming from 2020. Under Rug Swept, So-Called Chaos, Flavors of Entanglement, Havoc, and Bright Lights, and Such Pretty Forks in the Road. I wonder if the changing in technology and music affected her as well as many other artists that I've spoken about. Did that affect, you know, their stardom, as to say, or whatever the case may be? I'm sure it definitely happened for everybody because it definitely changed things. I want to say for the most, and again, for the most part, for the worst. Even though for us consumers who are able to just download music, it's kind of bullshit, man, in a sense, because now no CDs really, no more records, no more record stores where they sell new shit. I know they do, but still, I kind of liked it the way it was, man. You know, it was just so much better. So I'm always wondering if that affected it, and I'm sure it did for a lot of people. I think in all aspects. But yeah, man, she again 90's females, Alanis Morissette, couldn't go anywhere. Great name, by the way. Great voice, right? Had that like funky twangy voice, scream if she could. Yeah, one of a kind, man. One of a kind. So moving forward, uh, one of the next person we're going to talk about, I felt always had a phenomenal voice. Obviously, Doloresoriordan, who was lead singer of the great band the Cranberries. Again, um, standalone kind of voice, extremely unique voice. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2018. One of the many people from the 90's who we lost, which really sucks. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed her stuff, man. You know, Cranberries were really good. Obviously, they came onto the scene, um, 89. All right, so again, another band who starts out early and then climbs up and whatnot. Hit the mainstream, what they want to call success. Obviously, they're off their debut album, um, Linger. Again, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing that friggin' song. Uh, their first full-length album was, this is a great name for an album. Everybody else is doing it, so why can't we? Hey, man, that's the 90's right there. Was released in 93. Unfortunately, the album and the single didn't gain much attention to what I'm seeing, but Linger obviously was one of the many songs. You used to hear it over and over and over on the radio. She had that really great, unique voice, which would which would stand out. All right. And just looking at that album, they had a lot of good songs off that album. Dreams, Pretty, Waltzing Back, Not Sorry. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Sold over 5 million albums, too. That's not successful. I don't know what people consider successful sometimes. It's weird. And when you come, again, going to that whole thing, what's considered the album as opposed to, the so-so. Obviously, the next one in 94. Well, yeah, 94. No Need to Argue. Had that really cool picture of them with the whole band sitting in front of the couch. That was kick-ass, man. I remember when that came out. Holy shit. Zombie. Couldn't go anywhere without hearing it. Great, great song. One of my favorites, man. Without a doubt. That, I, for the most part, really, drove them up the charts. Album was killer. 17 million albums sold worldwide. Holy shit. That's funny. I never knew it was that famous. I mean, I knew it was great, but that's amazing. When you look back at the numbers sometimes, it shocks the shit out of you. Like, what the hell was I doing that I didn't know that it sold that many? I mean, Jesus. That next album, To the Faithful Departed, great name. Again, another great name for an album, man. Had that great song Salvation, Free to Decide. Two phenomenal songs, man. Two phenomenal songs. They enjoyed a lot of luck with that one. Over almost about 6 million sold worldwide at the time. More total, I guess you want to say. So they had become like a real household name, staple, man, for that time. Um, Without a doubt. I mean, three albums, killing it. I guess again, you want to call it the mainstream thing, whatever the case may be. Um, yeah. In March of '94, they had won the top international act. They performed at Woodstock 2. Damn, I wish I was there. Shit. They were touring extensively. I wish I would have gotten to see them play, tell you the truth. One of the many bands I did not get to see, which really sucks. They were at the 1995 MTV Music Awards in Europe, where they beat out Michael Jackson's "You Are Not Alone." All right. Yeah, huge, man. Huge. And again, extremely talented person. Great voice. Had a lot of solo work then from 2003 to 2009. It's funny. I never had the pleasure of listening to a lot of her solo work. It's something I definitely have to go back and do. Because I didn't get to listen to that. She had that great. I'm trying to describe her voice, man. It's kind of hard to do. Again, it's one of a kind. If you've never heard her sing, go back and listen. Songwriter, guitarist. I mean, her voice was kind of like, I guess, otherworldly in a sense, kind of opera-like. Unfortunately, she passed, man. Like I had mentioned before, which really sucks. Um, one of the many. One of the many that we lost. Anyway, going on, moving on. Oh shit, she was in Click. I didn't know that. She had a cameo in Click. I had no idea. Damn, great movie, man. I missed that one. Yeah, the Cranberries, badass. Going on to the next one, obviously, you talk about badass chicks, man. Shirley Manson from Garbage. I actually heard a really cool interview with her not too long ago on the Joe Rogan podcast. She seems like a really cool person, man. I've read a lot of interviews about her too. I've read a lot about her in interviews, I should say, going back various magazines. And I put her in the same category with Courtney Love in the sense that they were fearless, man. In your face, just kind of not going to settle for whatever. And she's had a long, interesting career, man. Just going by several different bands she was in and whatnot. Angelfish. That's a really cool name for a band, by the way. All right. And then she was invited to sing for the band Garbage, um, which is interesting. That worked out really well, as we all know. Um, Obviously, unfortunately, that band Angelfish then had broken up. I see. She had returned to. She was doing other stuff. Okay. She was then working with Garbage, of course. Their debut album became Garbage, released in '95. Went over to sell 4 million copies. Okay, and if you were around back then, only happy when it rains and stupid girl, two of the most phenomenal songs from the 90s. In fact, she gave a performance with the band at the MTV Awards. I don't know what year it was, but it was Only Happy When It Rains. It was absolutely phenomenal. Okay, that really catapulted her to stardom. I mean, they were, they were huge, man. Force to be reckoned with. Still going today, thank God. All right, but holy shit, that album, Garbage, did killer. Did killer, man. Went on to sell over 4 million records and on. Put them all over the place. She has again that one of a kind, great voice, man. Um, and watching them perform was actually interesting. They really tight band. They then go on to have a lot of luck with their second album, version 2.0. Had that hit song off of it, When I Grow Up. It was actually in the movie. Was it Big Daddy with my mind just went totally. Adam Sandler, man, great movie. That song is in the movie, man. Yeah, they had the song "Dumb" off that album. Again, enjoyed a lot of luck with that. That sold over 4 million, so they were flying, man. This is a golden time for shit. This is it's kind of as we get to the close of the 90s, you were seeing that you know it was still a golden time for music. It was still the technology had not changed. That whole Napster bullshit wasn't. I don't think that had happened yet, and things were really still kind of hot. It's a golden time for artists, man. When you have these golden times in history, it never lasts long, unfortunately, and that sucks. But that's what makes them so special, and it makes them, stand out without a doubt, and makes them so important without a doubt. You know, she had a lot of solo work. Okay, unfortunately, I've never had the pleasure to listen. I should definitely go back because I really enjoyed her voice, man. Um, she also has appeared on so many different, on so many different albums. She appeared on with the Queens of the Stone Age, Lullabies to Paralyze, I think is the album with Gavin Rosedale, Serge Tankian. Oh my God, on and on we go. You know, also too, man, another one who made the she got into the acting field. I never saw it. The Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. She played a T-1001 in 17 episodes. Man, never saw that. Does look interesting though. And obviously, like these again, you can kind of tell when somebody can cross over into acting. Man, they have that artistry. They have those chops that they're able to do so many things in. Man, she's also been like a beacon for females. I think one of the many outspoken. Does a lot for charity. Seems like a really nice person. And getting back to the whole talent thing, sometimes when you see people that can really do well in one area, they branch out. They write books, they paint, they're in movies, they're in TV, they'll do a podcast, whatever the case may be. They'll produce other work. That's something you always see. And she seems to be one of those people, man. You know. And again, the band is still going strong. I see. Um, I wonder if they're going to come this way. It would be interesting. Moving on to the next person. That's funny, man. Look, this next one, obviously, she's mega huge, right? I wasn't really into some of her solo stuff. It just wasn't my cup of tea, but I did appreciate it in terms of, her being talented and being able to branch out. Gwen Stefani, juggernaut, juggernaut, right? Singer, actress. What has she got? Her own clothing, her own perfume. I see. You know, everywhere, man. Great. She's in great shape too. I've seen a couple, videos of her performing. Very full of energy. Obviously, she came onto the scene with her band, No Doubt, which again, going back, listen, man, Tragic Kingdom was a kick-ass album. I got it. Had that crazy ass cool cover, her on it holding a burger, I think, whatever it may be. I remember when that came out. Holy shit. Song Spiderwebs, phenomenal. Couldn't go anywhere without hearing it. Just the Girl, wow. Wow. Don't Speak. Okay. I mean, this album was everywhere. They were everywhere. She was everywhere. The videos, you all over MTV, radio stations playing them. You couldn't escape it, man. You couldn't escape it. Uh and it over 16 million albums sold worldwide. You know, all over the charts. It's not even funny. She was an absolute beacon for all females at the time. She was obviously beautiful, obviously very talented, very important. And they enjoyed a lot of success, no doubt, man. They really did. They kind of, I always put them to an extent. They reminded me of like Green Day a little bit. They had the whole punk thing going on, you know, um, and they so much success they enjoyed. I didn't know anything about their first two albums, No Doubt and the Beacon Street Collection. Their fourth album was Return of Saturn. One I'm not really too familiar with, but um, you know, just from didn't sell as well as the first album, which is always kind of obvious. And it was a little bit of a hiatus, released about 5 years after that original one. But no doubt, like they were, for that time, from that 95 time on, they were huge, man. I mean, it was crazy. Really, it caught fire. I remember, again, I'm thinking of all like the young girls in high school who were so into No Doubt and just like loved Gwen Stefani. When I think of her, I always think of the midriff, the shirt pulled up and the belly hanging out. But that's kind of like she kind of like really catapulted that look forward, if that makes any sense. I mean that in a positive way, by the way. Interestingly about her too, she had killer solo work in between the band's albums, which is always very interesting. She worked with great talent, Moby, Eve. All right, obviously everybody remembers she was married to Bush frontman Gavin Rossdale. Again, the conjoining of two very talented artists, right? And then they had that 2001 album Rock Steady, which kind of was a little different than the punk sound, and it had that great version of Talk Talk's "It's My Life." Phenomenal, phenomenal. That actually was off a greatest hits album called The Singles. But what a killer song that was. That stands alone. Then she sees a lot of so much success as a solo act. I mean, I think she probably had more solo act success than she did as the lead singer of No Doubt. I'm not dissing them at all, but she had that "Holla Back Girl" song, which was everywhere. You couldn't. That's another one that was, all the ladies loved that one. Obviously, that was a hit. And then, interestingly enough, she gets into movies. I remember she played in what was that movie? Oh, one of my favorites, The Aviator. Yeah, she played Jean Harlow. She's not in it for a long time, but she's she's there. She's good. Um, she made a lot of appearances. Zoolander, Dawson's Creek, Gossip Girl. I mean, Portlandia. She's all over the place, man. It's she became like her own brand. She reminds me a lot of like Jennifer Lopez, and that obviously part of a band, solo stuff, into movies. Then you got your own clothing designer, does a lot of philanthropy, doing her own thing with uh, perfume. Anything she can't do, holy shit. And she looks good, man. She looks good. Definitely like a powerhouse. All these ladies we're mentioning were all powerhouses in their own way. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what they were able to do. I think she's married to the country singer now, Blake Shelton, right? Again, hey man, greatness and greatness. But again, just again launching a perfume line. But she have her own Lamb collection of clothing and accessories. I mean, there's anything she doesn't do. She produces an animated series. Holy shit! Again, a beacon of light for so many people, especially females, that you're able to do all these wonderful things. She was. I'm leaving out something too. Yeah, she was. What was she? She was the host, right, for one of those TV shows, The Voice, I believe, which is extremely interesting. I mean, who better to have? Yeah, one of a kind, man. Definitely one of a kind. Moving on. One of my favorites. Well, just you can't say enough about this person. Enya. Is there anyone that doesn't like Enya? Okay. I mean, honestly, is there not a more beautiful voice, unique voice, a otherworldly, other lively fantasy like voice than Enya? Her music, it takes you to another place. It does something to you. It just close your eyes, kind of picture yourself like in a some type of fantasy book novel on an island somewhere, beautiful sunset. I mean, her music is therapeutic, best way to say it. I have to give my oldest brother Christian credit for getting me into her. He's the one who introduced me to her. Obviously, you know. And again, she's had I mean a large catalog of music, wonderful hits. Orinoco Flow, Book of Days. It goes on and on, man. It goes on and on. You can see so much of her music in movies and TV now, right? Oh my God, it's not even funny. It's everywhere. Watermark is a phenomenal album. Orinoco Flow is an absolute phenomenal song. Um, and she national treasure. That album sold over 11 million records. She's a national treasure, man. I would love to see her in concert. I never had the pleasure. I don't know. I'm sure she's come this way. Not that I know, which really sucks for me. But most likely she has. Shepherd Moons, her third album, was amazing. Obviously, off of there, Caribbean Blue, one of my favorite songs of all time. Book of Days. You can hear that song in so many different movies, so many different coming attractions. Holy Jesus. Everywhere. That wonderful voice she has. Oh my God. Albums sold all over the place. 13 million albums. I mean, that's insane numbers. Insane numbers. The Memory of Trees in 1995. I love the name of her albums too. I love it. They're so fantasy like. Um, just selling well on both sides. Europe and the United States. Then there's A Day Without Rain, another phenomenal album, man. I love this album. Only Time is a great song. Wild Child is amazing. The Flora's Secret, Fallen Embers. There's a song on there. I believe it's just her playing. I forgot what instrument it is. Silver Inches, one of my favorite songs ever. It's only a minute and 37 seconds long, but it is phenomenal. Okay. And again, her music is always enlightening. It's always positive. It always makes you feel really good. Um, that's what I gather from it. And at the same time, too, it really just takes you to another place. What you really kind of want when you listen to music, man. You want it to just transform you to another place. And you've seen it, like I said, it's all over the place, man. It's fantasy like. It reminds me of like Lords of the Rings a little bit. That whole genre, if that makes sense. I don't know if I make sense with that one, but it's the best way to describe it. You go through her IMDb file of where all her songs have appeared in what movies and shows. It's so large. The movie Green Card, L.A. Story with Steve Martin, Sleepwalkers. Okay, hot song. I could say this wrong. Boadicea. Oh, just her humming. That's one of my favorite songs of all time. It appears at the end of the song. In fact, I think Lauryn Hill used that later on as like the background. Far and Away, right, with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. You hear Book of Days in there. The movie Toys. I'm going to say this wrong too. Ebuday. Great, great song. The Age of Innocence. Baywatch. I mean, the list is just incredibly long. I'm telling you, man. Sweet November, Only Time, that famous song, Only Time. You see that in a commercial right now that's currently on TV. Lord of the Rings, May It Be, Fellowship of the Rings, Gilmore Girls. She's everywhere, man. It's a trip. It's a trip. Knocked Up, Criminal Minds. I mean, Shrek Forever After. She's one of those talents that is for all time. That's the sound she created. That voice is for all time. And it's rare. It's very rare. And again, everybody loves Enya that I know. Everybody loves Enya. How can you not? All right. You'd be crazy not to. So she is definitely on that list. And in the 90s, she just kind of, blew up big time. Moving on. Next is singer who I will admit I didn't know much about, but she was like the poster girl for all things 90s. In fact, I see so many of the videos of her singing in her band Mazzystar, in the band Mazzystar, I should say, Hope Sandoval. If you are familiar with the 90s, and I've said this so many times before, but I got to say it again, you could not go anywhere without hearing Fade Into You from Mazzystar and her phenomenal voice. That is a song that goes into the time capsule of all things 90s, okay? Everywhere. To this day, I don't even know how to describe it. It's amazing, dreary, beautiful, sad, phenomenal. If you're going through a breakup, you could probably relate to that song when you put that on. Or, if you're driving and you're not feeling whatever, or that comes on. It's like one of those songs you always have to kind of listen to, man. There was a time I thought her name was Mazzy Star. How stupid was I? I had no idea. My middle brother Steven was the one to find out about this band, who's no longer around. I think they broke up in 2020. Been around since '88, which was interesting. Their best known is for "Fade Into You," which brought them more than their own than most bands have. I mean, let's face it. Like I said, that's the song. That's what they're known for, man. Came off their album, So Tonight That I Might See. I always, you know, what's funny? When you used to get the video on MTV, whatever, it always had the album name before, below it. It was a great name for an album. Came out in '93, perfect time, like right in the still early stages. Fade Into You is everywhere. She has that phenomenal voice. Shit. You can find it in so many movies, you know, which was always really interesting. They had an album before that, She Hangs Brightly. Then they had 2 albums after that, Among My Swan and Seasons of Your Day. Don't think they enjoyed as much success as they had early on, from what I'm seeing, but that doesn't really mean much because, again, talent is talent, which makes a lot of sense. And, you know, what's ever as good is ever good. Sometimes the best stuff is not uh, that is mainstream or whatever you want to consider it, you know. Obviously, you know, Hope Sandoval, of course, when the band had gone on hiatus in '97, she formed the Warm Inventions, who I'd never heard of. She had her own solo album, Bavarian Fruit Bread, which is really interesting. Again, showing her extreme amount of talent, right? Uh, you know, she again. Oh, look at this. Her and her band had performed All Tomorrow's Parties. I got to hear that from the Great Velvet Underground. One of my favorite songs, man, by far. They reformed in 2009 or 2011 rather, and I see that they were still around, although in 2020 it looks like they're not really together anymore. And she tours, obviously, you know, but she'll forever be known as go look in that go watch that video from Fade Into You, man. I can't tell you how many movies that it's not even funny. It's rather scary how famous that song was, you know. Again, living at that time through in you know, you kind of just dealt with it, man. It's like, oh, it's on the radio again. It's on the radio again. And so, you know, but now when you look back at it in hindsight, holy Jesus. Holy Jesus. Everywhere. And, you know, their music, that song was in, look at the list of movies and shows that song is in, right? And I'm only naming a few of them. It's not even funny. True Blood, My Mad Fat Diary, uh, Waterloo Road, Fringe, Without a Trace, CSI New York. I mean, not even funny. Look at some of the movies, man. American Horror Story, another TV show, right? Uh, Jesus. Everywhere. Riverdale, Dope Sick, Yellow Jackets. That song is everywhere. It's amazing. Movies End of Watch, Burlesque. I'm telling you, man. Chasing Mavericks, American Honey, Thank You for Your Service, everywhere. I think it was also in Clueless, right? I believe so. I could be wrong. I thought it was in Clueless. I could be wrong. But yeah, Hope Sandoval and Mazzystar definitely solidified their place in the 90s without a doubt. Moving on to my last two, and I've really extended this. The next one just blew up in the 90s. Bjork. Extremely talented person, right? You know, you ever see? There's a real kick-ass video of her going after the I don't know what someone says to her at the airport. She just goes crazy and like attacks them. Funny as shit, man. Funny as shit. but she's still going strong. Actress, singer. I mean, another one with a very interesting voice, a very interesting look. Okay. Yeah, she had that great paparazzi confrontation. That's a trip. Put out so many different albums. Debut, Post, Homogenic, Vespertine, Medulla, Volta, Biophilia, Vonicura, Utopia. Been in so many different movies too, man. The Juniper Tree, Dancer in the Dark. That was a directed by the great Lars von Trier. She's in this new one coming out too called The Northman. That looks like a kick-ass film. A lot of TV too. Okay, documentary about herself and whatnot. So appeared on various different soundtracks. Had that probably her most famous song of all from the movie Tank Girl, "Army of Me." One of the best songs of the 90s. Again, it's in there. It's just the same thing like Fade Into You from Mazzystar. It's all things 90s. It's all time. It'll never get old. Great video. It's had that song Venus as a boy from the wonderful movie Leon, the Professional. Had music in movies such as The X-Files, Mission Impossible, Being John Malkovich, The Mod Squad, Stigmata. Great movie. Sucker Punch. Army of Me appeared in there again, too. Extremely talented. Very, very autistic. Very autistic. You know, I know she's always changing outfits on various tours and whatnot from Iceland. Okay, she has put out an extensive amount of work. Again, it falls into that category of extremely talented people who have the ability to go in several different directions. We've seen that in so many of them. Her, Shirley Manson, Gwen Stefani, Courtney Love. It's amazing to see what these performers can do. And I think it's because of all these things that you really appreciate them a lot more. Such a great voice. Very, again, like Enya, it's very hard to describe in a sense. It's very like of not this world. It's the best way I can really I can really put my words on it. I don't know any other way to do it. Say it. Been going strong from 1975. Long time. One of the many. Keep it going, man. Yeah, she stands out for many reasons. Going on to my last one for now is the great Fionaapple. Oh man, Fionaapple, sexy as hell. Again, in the 90s, Fionaapple was everywhere. When she hit it big. Come on. I mean, it became one of those things where, every other song was criminal on the radio. Every other video. That was a great video, too. Did you ever see that video, man? Tremendous video. It's it was so well done. Directed by Mark Romanek. I think it's one of those more famous ones in terms of video. But phenomenal. Yeah, you couldn't go anywhere, man. She was everywhere. She was, had the song Shadow Boxer, okay, off the album Title. Cleaned it up, man, on that album. I mean, let's face it. Just sold over 3 million albums, various different charts. Interestingly enough, within that album, she worked with some wonderful talent. Matt Chamberlain on drums from Smashing Pumpkins, the great Van Dyke Parks. A lot of talent on that album, working together. She's still going strong too. She still looks exactly the same, which is at least my opinion. That was a 96 title. Then she, of course, had When the Pawn was her second album. I've never heard it, to be honest. She had probably the one song I did hear from there, probably one of the best cover songs I've ever heard from one of the best movies of the 90s, Pleasantville, her version of the Beatles' Across the Universe. Wow. Wow. Go listen to that. One of my favorite songs by her. What a beautiful voice. What a beautiful version, too. Um, so good, man. Amazingly enough, she earned a Grammy Award for Best Female Rock Vocal Performer for Criminal at the MTV Music Awards. Also, she got Best New Artist video for Sleep to Dream. All right, so she definitely all over the place, man. And again, still going strong. Does a lot of philanthropy, which is always great. Um, such a great voice. A lot of energy. It's one thing all these ladies had in common, man. You know, they all, kind of brought their own ability, their own talent to things, and it it just showed how great they were. Stapling themselves in music history forever, and especially 90s music. She also joined the great Johnny Cash on his cover of Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water, on that one of those phenomenal albums he had during the 90s. American 4, The Man Comes Around, which was nominated for a Grammy Award. Listen, man, anything Johnny Cash does is great. Collaborated with Cat Stevens on the song Father and Son. One thing I don't ever really like to get into is a lot of these artists' personal trouble, because I just think that sometimes that's, if they bring it out and they're using it as a way to tell everybody about it and kind of help others, I think that's a great thing. But people's personal business sure remain their personal business sometimes, and sometimes we see that it's magnified all over the place. And a lot of these ladies, wonderfully enough, have gone through various struggles and have, for the most part, overcome them, which is always inspiring for everybody, especially women in this case. And it's unfortunate for anybody that we've lost, that being Doloresoriordan. It's always unfortunate to lose one of these great people from their struggles. But nonetheless, they leave us with wonderful stuff that these ladies were able to create, either by themselves, through a band, in film, on TV, through a book, painting, what have you. So this is just a special list of all things from the 90s that was extremely special to me. I wanted to make an episode of this for a while, and I'm happy I got around to doing it. This great variety of women who, for the most part, we're the face of the 90s. Again, I'll say this again. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing these amazing, talented ladies, hearing them. And that's what makes it so important. They are forever cemented their place in music history, in that great time capsule of the 90s. And they're still going strong for the most part, which is great. That's what you want. You want that longevity. That's what I want. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was really special. And I apologize if I missed anybody. Of course, I know I did. Please feel free to let me know your opinion on this, whether good or bad. It's all cool. I don't get offended unless you make fun of my mother's feet. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, I believe Snapchat too, branching out there, TikTok, whatever, your mother's beard, all these other places that there seems to be content, right? So, yeah, hit me up anytime, man. You've been hanging with the beast, and we out.